So as you can see, right now we are in the selection tool, which is a shortcut is A. If you press A, you will go into selection mode where you can select a specific portion of the image. You can also click the layers that you want to go into. So if I paste anything new here, that becomes layer 2, layer 3, layer 4 and so on. Now if I want to move the layers individually, then I need to use this section that is called as layer manager tool, W. That way I can move the images, individual images which are pasted as individual layer in the tool. In this image, inside this image, it is pasted as individual layers. If I click A, then I am able to select some portions within the image. And if I scroll through the mouse, the middle button, if I scroll that, it zoom in and zooms out. Where the cursor is, it will zoom in. Now look at this. If I want to create a border for this particular image, let me just show you. Right click and say redeem layer. Click on this option, redeem layer. This lets you increase the size and decrease the size of an individual image that you have pasted within this particular image. So you can right click and do this, where you will know exactly, you can keep the size same for all the images that you are pasting. Where it requires a little bit of manual precision to get the exact same size, or what is the alternative option to get the exact same size is that right click and go for manual setting. So in this, I already know that my entire image is 4000 by 4000 pixels. So what I would do, I would probably keep it as 1500 pixels as a height for each of that. This is 1500. Of course, you can see there is a difference in the size of this. So I want to make sure this is also in the same height. So I'll right click, manual, edit manual settings, then I'll go for 1500. So match one dimension of the image. So you can see now they are in the both this are in the same size. Now for the border, to obtain a border of this particular image, you have to place it carefully in the edge, but not covering the entire edge like this, but slide a few pixels away from the edge. And if you zoom out, this is going to look like a border. And the same thing, scroll through, keep the image in the same distance of pixels that you have from the border to the image. The same distance you maintain here, and there you go, you have a border for this image. So let me just copy and paste multiple times the same image. So I'll show you how a plate would appear. So if I place it carefully in the same pixel distance from each other, you have yourself a plate or a collage. So I can just, this is an extra, I don't want it, I delete it. Now another option is, now I need to make the image itself into this one. There is a lot of empty space there that I don't want. I want to focus this image only on this 4 images. So I'll go into first this background. Instead of being in the layer, I want to go into the master image, which is the background. You click on the background, then you click A, which is the selection tool, and then I'm going to select all this area where all the images are there. Scroll through and make sure you are keeping the border as the same distance of pixels that you left on the top, and scroll through this corner and adjust the bottom pixels as also in the same size. Now all you have to do is right click and say crop image. It will crop the entire image into this. Now you have a bordered image. It looks like somebody drew the border lines, but we didn't draw the border lines. We just placed it in a way that the background appears to be the border. But keep in mind, journals will always ask for a white background images. The journals will not ask for a dark background images, because the dark background images takes up more memory and more ink. In case if it's a hard copy, it requires more ink, or if it is a PDF file, the dark colored background images constitute more memory, that is, it constitutes to 1 MB, 2 MB of the file. The file size becomes larger. That's why journals always recommend a white background. But the intention of our black background is to create a border for the image, not to keep as a background of the image itself. Now that I've created this, the next step to place is the labels, the subsections A, B and C. So for this, I would use this tool here, that is called as text tool, which you can see on the top corner, top middle of the window. Here you can use, it's as simple as MS Word. You can use any font that you want that are already pre-installed here. I'm going to use Times New Roman, that's the most commonly acceptable font for all scientific journals. So I'm using that, and I'm mostly using black color when the background is already white. If your image has a lot of content in black color, then it is recommended to use blue or violet or indigo, but not anything in the red or light green. Usually try avoiding any labeling in red or green or yellow. Either go for black or for blue in the scale, in the range of blue. Now I'm going to use black, and I'm going to say A is a text. You can apply bold, you can make it italics, etc. But here it's usually recommended as bold. And in this case, what happens? The text will be added as a additional layer. So you can see layer 6 is the text. So if I want this to appear on top of the other layers that I already have, I need to drag that and put it on the top so that it appears on the top of all the other layers. Otherwise, what happens? If it goes below this, then at this point you can see that it will disappear because it is behind this particular layer. I want this to come on top of all the images, so I have to drag it and keep it on the top of the stack that you are seeing here in the PhotoFiltre. Now I'm going to keep it to one corner, but of course the entire image, compared to the entire image, this text is little smaller. So I want to make it little big and more prominent so it is not confusing. So this could be an acceptable size. Once I apply this particular settings for this text, all the other text that I'm going to use will have the same prefixed font, that is Times New Roman 150 and black. So you can go ahead and add the remaining labels. B, so there you have it. This is the image plate for one image which has 4 sections A, B, C, D with borders, but technically we didn't add any borders, we used the background itself as a border. So this is the first basics for creating a collage where you create a plate or an array of images within one image with subsections, and how the border will automatically appear if the background is properly placed for each images. Now, the initial comment I made is the images are not clear. There is too much of empty spaces. So that's the issue that we are going to work now. So I'm going to create another image. I'm going to close this one. Of course, there is always a save option. Once you are done with all the images, you can go ahead and save the image as. You can either save it as a JPEG or a PNG file or a TIFF file or a GIF file or a BMP image. By default, it will come as a PhotoFiltre file, that is .pfi, but you are free to change between any of the image formats that you need. Mostly journals will ask for a JPEG or a TIFF image. So I would recommend going with JPEG because it has a slightly better quality and clarity compared to TIFF, but TIFF has a more standardized for publication, for printing purposes. JPEG is universally accepted for soft copy. So you can save that in whichever format that you want. So now I'm going to start with another image, another new page with 4000 pixels and with black background and 300 pixels resolution. Now I created that image. I'm copying this, let's paste it here. Since this image is already blurred, it is not going to be very clear on you cannot attain a drastic difference in the clarity, but I'm going to show you how to make the image look better in regards to avoiding the empty spaces and regards to improving the quality and the sharpness of the image. So let me go with the same option that I did before. I'm going to increase the height of the image to 1500. So here it is. I'm going to copy another one. I'm going to paste next to it. So you will see what's the difference before and after is going to look like. Now, as I said, the selection tool, which is a shortcut, is A. If you press A, you are allowed to select within a particular layer and then crop the particular layer. When I'm on layer 2, so whatever editing I do only affects this layer. This is layer 1 and this is layer 2. So if I click on layer 2 and if I start doing anything here, that's not going to affect layer 2. Because layer 2 has only pixels here itself. So you have to work on this part to see any difference. So now first thing I'm going to do is try to reduce the empty space. So I'm going to place the selection tool somewhere here and try to adjust the border so that there is not much of an empty space for the fly. Around the fly there is not much of empty spaces. So right click, and this time you will see the option is crop layer instead of crop image. Crop image will appear if you are working on the entire background, which is the master image of image, but this one we are working on a specific layer, so you get the option crop layer. So click on crop layer. Now you can click W to go back into the layer selection tool, so you are able to move around the layer. Now the size of the layer 1 is 1500 pixels by height. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that 1500. So see the difference here. It looks a little blurry and it is brightness is too much. So one of the things in microscopes, when you take image from a microscope or from another object through a camera, sometimes the exposure becomes too much, brightness becomes too much. There is either too much lighting or the exposure is too much. For several reasons it looks too bright. So in this case, to adjust the brightness and the sharpness of the image, you can use the predefined tools. If you see in this top left corner of the screen, you can see there is a brightness adjusting tool, brightness minus and brightness plus. There is contrast minus, contrast plus. There is exposure, that's gamma minus and gamma plus. So usually this is the exposure. I would use it in the place of exposure, so it reduces the overall. You see the difference here. If I reduce the gamma correction, the object becomes more darker, correct? But if I adjust the brightness, if I try to reduce the brightness, the whole background gets darker. Okay, so you have to do trial and error on each image before you can see whether you are adjusting the brightness or you are adjusting the gamma. So in this case, I would reduce the gamma correction, increase the brightness so that the background stays white. Let me go back a few steps. You can, same like Word, MS Word, you can do Control Z for undo and Control Y for redo. That shortcut is same in PhotoFiltre 7. Control Z for undo and Control Y for redo. So now I'm going to reduce the gamma correction. So now the fly's abdominal part, the legs and the sections of the legs are little bit more clearer, but however it is still little blurry. So you can use the contrast option, increase or decrease the contrast. This is going to differ from image to image, but this way it looks much better than the previous image. And there is this tool here, a small triangle shaped image, which is sharpen. You can use reinforce, which is like an enhanced version of the sharpen, but sharpen would usually work fine. You can apply sharpen to make it look better. So this initial few steps, see the difference between this image and this image. Okay, I'm going to go back a few steps by just the gamma correction, and you can increase the color saturation. The saturation is nothing but the color intensity. So you can reduce the color to make it look black and white. Now the entire fly looks black and white. I'm going to increase the color. So if you see, we are able to get the actual color. In this particular example, the fly was actually eating a blue color dye. So in the abdomen, you can see bluish color. If that is not very much visible or evident in this image because of too much of exposure, you can use this saturation, increase saturation, but the entire body becomes orangish, which I don't want that. So I'm going to reduce it a little bit till I can, to a point where I can see the blue color is very prominent. Okay. So now this, compared to this image, this is a much enhanced version, and in all fairness, the image is actually, the legs of the fly are blue in color because yeah, the flies are exposed to blue color dye. So while they were walking around the dye, their legs also got picked up the blue color. So that's why the legs are appearing slightly bluish in color as well. So you can see the details of the flies compared to this and this. So this is some basic options that you can do to bring up the quality of the image from an overexposed or a blurry image to a better image. My best advice would be to try to import the image at the largest size possible into PhotoFiltre and then work on it. If you bring in a low quality image or a smaller image, already a condensed image into PhotoFiltre, the enhancement is not going to be very significant. So try to bring in the original image of whatever, whether it is a camera or whether it is a mobile phone or any image that you have taken, before editing it anywhere. Try to take the raw image into PhotoFiltre and try to edit it so the blurriness goes away. Okay, so this is one example. Now let's see if we can get some graph and try to make a plate out of a graph. Well, let's say I want to make a plate of graph as well. This is a graph which I want to add into PhotoFiltre. So you can paste it as a separate image. You can see it gets a little blurry as you zoom in, right? This should not happen. So any image that you're pasting in PhotoFiltre, you can individually enhance the quality of that image separately before you're bringing it into the plate, into this master plate. So I pasted this image as a separate image. I'm going to right click on that. You have to go into the selection mode if you want to edit this image. Press A, go into the selection mode, or just click here, then right click and go into image size option. Here you can see that the pixels are very low. I told you minimum at least 1000 to 2000 is an acceptable range or of a pixels height or width wise. And then resolution of the image should be at least 300 minimum. So I'm changing all that and I'm clicking OK, and see now the blurriness has gone out, but it's slightly smudged in the edges. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the gamma correction tool to make it a bit more sharper, contrast, so overall now it looks a bit more clearer, and the color might be a little too much, so you can edit the color, reduce the color a little bit. Now the blurriness or the pixelation does not come out very evidently. You can use the sharpen tool now to even make it look better. So I'm going to copy this, paste it here, Now I want to show this image next to the fly, and I have to match the height and the width. So at any point it is always recommended that you focus on one dimension, either the height or the width. In this case, I want to show the flies next to the graph. Let's say I no longer require this image. I want to show the fly next to the graph. So I have to either match the height of the graph or the height of the fly, vice versa, so that it looks good. So I already know that the height is 1500 pixels. So I'm going to go and change that. Now let's paste it somewhere here, the border, and make sure I'm doing the same here as well, but I think I should leave a bit more gap. Border is too small. Okay, there is already a border in this graph, which is what is causing the confusion. So I'm going to go into selection tool, and I'm going to remove the border of this graph so that it is easier for me to adjust the height. I'm cropping out the border of the graph. Crop layer. Now again I have to make the height manual settings and 1500. Now it will be easier for me to keep the graph. Alright, now Control A. And adjust the corners so that it is exactly in the same. The border on the right has to be the same thickness as the border on the top. Then the border on the bottom has to be in the same thickness as the border in the left. Then you have right click and crop image. So you have your two images with the border is already ready. I bring up the text layer, so here it comes as A. And in this particular case, look at that, the graph is not having much of flexibility for you to add here. So I can choose to place it in another corner, but because the graph is actually dominating in black, I can choose to keep it as black, or I can change it to a different color which will make it a bit more evident, or the label will stand out in the graph. A blue color would be a better option. If I am keeping the subsection on the right side of one subsection, preferably I should do the same thing for the other labels as well, so that their symmetry is maintained and the size has to be same. The label for one subsection should not be bigger or smaller than the other. It has to have the same font and the font size and the font style. So make sure that is applied. So now I am giving blue color because the graph is already having blue, red and a green color. And the borders are very close by. It's preferable that you use a different color to make sure that it stands out from the graph, saying that this is not part of the graph. So this is a small preview of what can be done using PhotoFiltre 7.2.1, which is a freeware and an older version of the PhotoFiltre, of course, but this is pretty much all you need for editing images for a scientific journal, which I've been doing it for many years. So if you have any comments on this video, or if you have any particular questions, please don't hesitate, put it up in the chat. I would be more than happy to address that comments. Thank you guys.